Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 794, and today's date is October 18th, 2015, and the title of this episode is The Current Economic Collapse News Brief. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement to all those people that were waiting for the interview with Michael Snyder. It looks like I had technical difficulties. Skype updated the Skype software. I had the interview with Michael Snyder. I recorded the interview. And when I went to play it back after we ended and everything and he left, I realized that there was nothing recorded whatsoever. Now, either Skype changed their API and the software needs to be upgraded, but I am checking on that right now to make sure that I can record future interviews, which I do have coming up. And for those people who are curious, yes, I will be asking Michael to come back on and to repeat the interview that we did already. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we all realize that the banking system, which is basically controlled by the Federal Reserve, is completely insolvent. They've been propped up by free money from the Fed. The Fed went in, bought up the toxic mortgages from the banks. The banks have been given free money, and they've been told to take that and pump up the stock market. They've been told to hold off on foreclosures to keep the prices of homes continually moving up. They want to ban cash because they realize eventually bail-ins are coming and they don't want the same problem they had out in Greece where people went and took out their funds. And we can see right now they want the large corporations who have a lot of currency deposited in the bank, they want them to do something with it. And really what they want them to do is they want them to take it and pump up the stock market. And we can see right now that U.S. banks, they're going to new lengths to basically charge the big cash deposits. State Street Corp, the Boston bank that manages assets for institutional investors, for the first time has begun charging some customers for large dollar deposits. And we know they need this money flowing into the market to keep this entire thing propped up. And this is what they're trying to do. And we can see there are many different agendas at play here. They want big companies pumping up the stock market. They don't want the everyday person taking out their funds. They want them to spend it, but only through debit and credit. They don't want them taking their cash out and holding it and hoarding it in their homes. That is a big no-no for them because then they can't touch it. They can't get their hands on it. And this is the problem they had out in Greece. Now, this economy right now, which we've discussed many, many times, is really falling apart all around them. I mean, all the economic indicators, they're trying to convince us that we're in a recovery, but everything is showing us that we are headed for a major, major collapse. Actually, we've been in a collapse for quite a while right now, and all they've been doing is propping everything up, blowing up the bubbles as best they can. China realizes, and Russia realizes, and many other nations realize that the dollar is at its end here. They realize we can't hold on to these treasuries anymore. And what China has been doing is they have been dumping treasuries and liquidating reserves since January. And this is accelerating right now. They are continually taking the treasuries and whatever they have, their reserves, and dumping them. A little bit at a time, because they are trying to unwind right now. Because when this system comes down, they don't want to be holding these treasuries. Because they know the U.S., they're not going to be able to make good on it. And all of the trillions of dollars will just go up in thin air. So what they're doing is they're selling the treasuries, getting the cash, purchasing gold, purchasing real estate. And Russia's doing the same thing. We see the American people, they have no trust in the mainstream media anymore. A new poll asked over 1,000 Americans, how much trust and confidence do you have in the mass media? when it comes to reporting the news fully, accurately, and fairly. It turns out Americans don't have any more trust. They don't believe them anymore. Most of the mainstream media is getting their propaganda right from the government. They're doing no investigational reporting whatsoever. They have no facts to back up anything, and they're just coming out with anything the government tells them to come out with. And this is how we know the government is using all this propaganda on us. They've been using propaganda about who the Islamic State is, propaganda and what we're doing in Syria, Lebanon, Libya. I mean, going back to George W. Bush when we went for those weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And of course, later we find out there was no weapons of mass destruction. Went into Afghanistan looking for bin Laden. Bin Laden, he died many, many years before this of kidney failure. We know 9/11 was not done by any type of terrorist group. We know it was an inside job. All they do is continually lie to us. I mean, we look at one of the World Trade Center buildings that they were reporting on that said it was demolished, and there it was standing up right behind the reporter. So we can see at this point in time, they take their propaganda, their scripts from the government, and they just repeat. And I would say 95% or a little bit higher is completely fake today. The U.S. military is going to be flying over Russia in an Antov AN-30B plane. This is a scheduled flight for October 19th through the 22nd. And this is from the Open Sky Treaty, which allows each country to fly over the territory to make sure there is no mass buildup of military. And we can see right now the United States is going to be flying over Russia's far east in the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and they're going to report back on what they see. And of course, they've been doing this all over Russia. And this is how every time the corporate media, the U.S. government comes out and says, there's Russian troops being built up, we know it's completely fake, phony, and false, because they would have photos of all of this. They would be reporting on this, showing, yes, here are the troops, this is where they are. They would have satellites right over, and every time we mention an Open Sky Treaty flight, guess what? Nothing comes out of it whatsoever. There are no troops. There is nothing there whatsoever. U.S. and the Allies are going to be testing the missile defense system in Europe for the first time. The U.S. Navy, alongside forces from 8 other nations, will hold a missile defense drill later this October. The exercises will be held under the Maritime Theater Missile Defense Forum, which is a coalition aimed at coordinating missile defense efforts. The goal of the exercise is basically to test the missiles and see if they're able to counter multiple missile threats, like coming from Russia or China or North Korea or Iran. And we know that the missiles from Russia, China, they can maneuver, they can change course. They have some missiles that are doing Mach 10. And we can see right now that most of the equipment the U.S. has and the Allies have will not be able to intercept most of these missiles. But they're testing it. The U.S. is pushing the propaganda to show everyone that, yes, we're bombing inside Syria to get rid of the terrorist groups. They're telling us that they hit the Khorasan leader. Now, of course, we've never heard of the Khorasan leader until they went into Syria, which is another made-up terrorist group, which is created by the CIA. And they're out there saying, yes, we hit the leader, we know for sure, and we know this is complete propaganda. They have no proof, no pictures. They have absolutely nothing, just like everything else. The Syrian forces right now have regained a lot of the eastern territories of Syria as Russia comes in and bombs the Islamic State and other terrorist groups. The area is considered the first line of defense for the Deir al-Zor airport, and it looks like they're continually pushing eastward, taking back the country. Now, there was a Syrian opposition base that was struck by unknown planes. Russia's out there saying, we had nothing to do with this whatsoever. And this was a base where the Free Syrian Army was controlling the Islamic State terrorists. And nobody knows who flew in and bombed this area. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S., the coalition forces came in and they're trying to remove the evidence of what has really been going on in Syria so Russia can't report back. And it seems like they're doing a little bit of a cleanup job right now as they rebrand a lot of the groups, shift them over to a different area. And we're seeing a lot of this. Russia is offering broader cooperation in Syria with the United States. And the United States, they will not accept whatsoever. They want nothing to do with Russia in destroying the Islamic State and the other terrorist groups. And this shows us right there that, guess what? The U.S. is using the Islamic State to scare and put fear in everyone that there is a terrorist group in Syria and we need to stop them. When in reality, it is a proxy army for the United States to go after Assad. Now remember back in 2013 when there was a physical attack on a California energy grid substation, and it was a sniper attack. And nothing was ever reported on it. They can't find anyone that did it. Well, there was a meeting of the top nation's electrical utility regulators, and they have some evidence that they believe that this hit was an inside job, that it could have been hired contractors. And they're gathering the evidence right now, but they're not reporting on it just yet. Now, we know that at that time, back in 2013, this was most likely a test to see if they were able to bring this down. And they use hired contractors to perform this. Now, we know that the operatives around the country, they're on standby. They're waiting for the green light to say go ahead. And we know this is going to be an inside job. So we know this was not terrorists. This was an inside job. Now, the FBI is out there, and I reported this on Friday about ISIS bringing down the power grid. And they're saying that ISIS hackers are still attempting to penetrate the U.S. energy grid in order to carry out cyber attacks and down parts of the country's energy supply. And the FBI does believe that they will have the capability to do this. Now, what the FBI is saying, and which is funny because I just mentioned this on Friday, and the FBI is saying they will not be able to take down the entire country. But what they said was the cyber attack might cripple individual utilities, causing a blackout or disruption of service at the local level. So what I said on Friday, most likely they will not take out the power grid for the entire country. This will be isolated incidences in, let's say, in one of the cities in Texas, maybe in New York. And they want the rest of the country to stay up. And this is confirming right now that this is exactly what they're planning for, and they're pushing out the propaganda that it's coming from the Islamic State. So they're saying the likeliest outcome of a cyber attack against U.S. infrastructure is localized disruption in service, not a widespread outage. So we can see they're pushing the propaganda out there. They're making sure that everyone realizes that this is what they believe is happening. They're seeing the attacks right now. And this is why everyone still needs to be prepared. This is far from over. Remember, everything is connected here. The economic collapse, what's happening in the Middle East, the petrodollar, and these false flag events. And it's not just going to be an economic collapse. These are going to be intertwined with false flag events. And you might see the power go out in your city. Now, other people might not see this. Other people might have physical attacks. But this is why you continually need to be prepared and ready. You need batteries. You need other sources of electrical power. You need candles. You need ways to cook your food. Because we don't know how long this power is going to be out. Now, if you've been preparing, continue to prepare. If you haven't started, a company like lifereliance.com, everything's pre-made. They have food on the go, ready to go. You can customize your order. And for those people who are preparing, make sure you have other things in your preps, like battery storage. And what I do with my electrical goods, I keep them in a metal container, which is insulated, and it creates a Faraday cage. And you can use any type of metal container as long as it seals, and you tape it around so none of the waves can get inside of it. And this is where I store my batteries, my lanterns, anything that's electrical that I don't want anything to happen to, because I don't know what's going to happen. So I keep that in the metal containers. It's insulated with fabric so it doesn't touch any of the metals, and it's sealed on top. And I know, and they're labeled on the outside, so I know exactly where they are. And we all need to be ready, because we don't know exactly what they're going to do, but we do have hints of what they want to do. And this is why we all need to be ready. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.